night I retired early, having overdone it on that momentous, wonderful Thursday, Friday this week. So I retired early. So because I retired early, right, I thought, I'll get the fire alarm going so that we can clear the bar, get everyone back to bed. Not true, really, I wouldn't do that.
Thank you very much. 5 rounds rapid, please. Mine's pints as well. Our next guest has been known by many names across the world. Some of them I can read out now. Johnny Red Boots, Gentleman Johnny Bingo, John Anthony Blake, but to us, he's John Levene and John Benton. Please, John. And to complete our, I believe the phrase is unit family, an actor
Briggs Army.
who in 1974 as Michael Yates got mixed up with a bunch of celebrities and politicians in a plot known as Operation Golden Age, a bunch who sought to turn back time to a simpler age, and isolationism was their watchword. Last week, as a referendum party candidates for Hackney South and Shoreditch, Richard Franklin moved into politics properly, and he is our next guest. Thank you, Richard. And to interview these 3 fine figures of men from Dreamwatch, Paul Simpson.
Sit in a row.
Sit in a row, it's easier.
It's just friendly, isn't it? You're going to it together, yeah, all right.
It doesn't collapse.
No. Yeah. Can you correct the tilt, John? Mind your back.
No, you're going too fast for left, Richard.
Oh, hold on, let's have gone that one together.
Gentlemen, sort of talking about, Richard, your recent move into politics. But Nick and John, you've also been involved in slightly different things over the last year from what most of fans are used to thinking of you as. John, what have you been up to since you last descended upon our shores a year ago?
Well, gosh, you were okay. A lot of things, of course, living in Hollywood keeps one busy. And I was very fortunate to be picked up by Robert Wagner to be the executive producer of a tennis golf club. Yes, yes, you know, he came straight up to me and asked me if I was gay. I said, gay, I was bloody happy. No, and I produced this wonderful tennis classic, and I met lots of lovely people who raised $2 million for battered women and abused children, of which there are huge quantities in America. And just a lot of other things which are a little too long to go into now. Suffice to say, I'm very happy to be back to see you all. I've missed English fans more than you'll ever know. I have to say, we want to tell you all, and it's wonderful to see this room full of gorgeous people.
You've also been working with a certain mouse.
Yes, I've just become the new voice of Walt Disney. Disneyland in California can use my voice, I believe, so for the next 15 years, introducing their new $38 million light magic show, which took over the electric light. I'd never been to Disney myself, and when I went to the voiceover, they tried to get Sean Connery because of Dragon Bar. He wanted $1 million, so they went for me. So it's very, very flattering, and of course it's high profile, which my star is just beginning to rise. I had a very tough time in America for 6 years. It's a very hard place to settle down in. Not a place to be terribly happy in if you live there. There's a lot of things going on that don't suit my way of life, but I've got an American wife, and I've never been so happy and so in love in my whole life, and really and truly that's why I'm with them. But I have been offered a rather prestigious job back in England in 5 years' time, which I would like to take because I want to come home to die in England, if I may say that.
Not yet.
Things like that everywhere. But I want to come back to England, but yes, suffice to say, the Disney thing was awfully nice, and I'm very happy about it. So that's roughly it.
Nick, what have you been up to recently? As if I don't know.
As if he doesn't know. know. Well, on Thursday, I was on polling station duties with my red rosette, and she increased her majority by a two-thirds, which is very good indeed. Okay, but before that, I've been very busy writing, actually, since last November, nagged by, I think, Paul Simpson, I think his name is, and Daniel Cohen. I've been very, very busy. Finally, I am writing the book, and it's really on the way now. And I'm very excited about it, and I keep everything crossed and fingers crossed. Okay, well, since last year, yes, I suppose the only other television job I've done last year was, none of you would have seen it unless you lived in Wales. But put it this way, I was playing an ex-public school transvestite. And
It was a twirl.
It was a twirl, oh dear. Well, I've got the frock on today. It was a beautiful white satin gown. Wonderful diamantic cluster earrings. And, I'm not joking.
He's not joking.
I'm not joking.
Left us later again.
Yes, that was terrific, and that was all done in Cardiff. Not a lot. It hasn't been the most successful of the year, but I mean, certain things were very good. One of the lovely things earlier this year was I decided both Karen, my wife, and I, we need a holiday. So we went to Cyprus, and there was a St. Valentine's Day return. So I went on a day return to the city of my birth, Cairo in Egypt. And we came back, and that's why I was born in Egypt, and I also grew up much later in Egypt. And that was quite amazing. So, yes, an away day to Egypt. So that's wonderful to do. That was pretty exciting. And what else? Well, I think the writing's taken me over, and it certainly will take me over for the rest of this year, because there's quite a bit more to do yet. But I'm enjoying it. It's a challenge. It's tiring. I haven't realised how tiring it is, actually, because you've got to get the concentration. But most of I seem to be lucky with recall. I have recall of anecdotes that not even you, other people, any of you remember, but I seem to remember them. So I hope there'll be some what they call fresh material. Anyway, I'm enjoying it, loving it, very happy to be in Manchester, and very happy to be in Manchester with a Labour government, with a majority. The biggest majority since 1832, when the Great Reform Act was passed. Because history was passed. The Reform Act of 1832, European history was my strong point. And I'm a bit of a European. I disagree with Richard about these matters. But I mustn't tell Richard this, he doesn't know this. Actually, when I went to the Labour committee rooms, they said, do you know you're on time out? I said, no. They said, well, there's a gentleman called Ian Levene and Nicholas Courtney, members of the referendum party. It's all his fault, because I did a show for him playing Sir James Goldfinger.
I was just going to say, Richard, you not only were you a candidate, but you were also involved very heavily with the publicity for the referendum party with this show. It does something about it, because it's something that was known in the London area, but I don't think got much publicity that far outside.
Yes, and when Nick was mentioning all the wonderful things he's been doing this year, I was very surprised he didn't actually mention the best thing of all, and that was when his appearance on a wooden hobby horse. Yes. And I've got it in the car. You can write it later.
I can write it later about it. But I've got the trainers.
You have?
Yeah, but I haven't got the white tights. Okay. Well, I came back to you, didn't I?
He played Sir James Goldfinger. It was very good. Yes, you said that I've...
very well, seriously, very well written and directed by Richard. And that is for true.
Thanks very much.
Very well written, very good.
It was actually a short, scabby little piece, and rather in the nature of the television programme, The Funny Faces.
Spitting Image.
Spitting Image, thank you very much indeed. I always forget words when I really want.
I didn't wear a rubber band.
You say that I just made an entry into politics. Actually, I just made an entry out of politics. Very sharply on Thursday night, which of course was quite a sort of a mind-blowing experience. In fact, this morning I just realised, I think just had come to. I was very numb last night when I arrived. Politics means a lot to me, but then actually it means a lot to you, although you don't know it. Most people say not interested in politics. In fact, every moment of the day you're interested in politics. Whether you have money for the arts, whether you drink beer and it's getting expensive, what school do you go to? It's all politics. So none of us can afford not to be interested, and I get interested in one or two issues. On this particular occasion, I was interested in democracy, interested in people being fully informed about the most important issue of our times, which is our relationship with Europe, and for the people to say what they want. And actually, Nick was saying that he and I don't agree on this issue. Actually, we do agree on this issue. I'm not anti-European at all. I'm pro-democracy. I just want people to have their say. So that's what I've been on about there. Yes, as far as the actual play is concerned, I always try to combine my real life with my fantasy life. And I wrote this play called Gagging Britannia, which is now going to go to the Edinburgh Festival again. John came with me a play a few years ago, Recall Unit.
The Great Teabag Mystery.
The Great Teabag Mystery, which will be at Southside, which is near the Fringe Club. So if you're going to be in Edinburgh for the first week of the festival, do hope people will come, because it is a very funny play. And it's actually got a second half, which I'm writing now. I've asked Nick to be in it. I don't know whether he's going to be able to. Did you get my letter, Nick?
I got your letter, and you addressed it to me on the envelope, but actually inside it was addressed to David McGilvray. Another gentleman, another member of this very good cast, because we had a smashing cast.
That means that all the letters will be unseen.
I mean, some of them are not the desk. Yes. That's right, I have got your letter anyway.
I wonder who got
more of that not, though. More of
I wonder who got the letter saying that Nicholas Courtney stinks.
His agent. Moving back to Doctor Who, Richard, you joined the team rather later than John and Nick, who had become established with the show.
Yes, the show got very tired, actually. Then it used to
and left before them.
Yes, but I now want to stay off the party.
How did it feel joining something that was by then an very established hit, and there was a format that was set up?
The format didn't worry me because I felt that I was very much at home there. But actually joining the team and going into a very successful television series was very nerve-wracking indeed. The biggest thing I'd ever done on television, and it took me. The day I left, I think I had learned how to actually behave.
John, your route into Doctor Who was in fact a very different one from virtually anybody else's. From male model at store to...
Well, no, salesman, not
sales.
male.
Oh, are you sure?
Yeah.
Yeah,
I don't wear dresses myself. It's too much of a drag.
I can recommend it.
How did you feel when you came onto the Doctor Who team with Web of Fear and then later coming in as Benton?
Well, when you look back, retrospective views are often nicer than present day ones. And it was the biggest thing in my life for no other reason than we didn't know then it would end up being a phenomenon, loved and adored by fans and actors alike. And I, unlike most of the other actors, hadn't had any acting training. But it was Douglas Canfield who was seeing me do a walk-on for him in, I think it was like a live Wednesday play. And it wasn't until last year that Barry Letts informed me that Douglas had walked into the office and said, I'd seen a young man that I want to play Secret Agent Benton.
And you said, boy, can that boy walk?
So that was how I started. And I look back, now I'm living in America, as I said, I think of England far more than I should. But there's not a day goes past when something Doctor Who related doesn't happen. I mean, I get recognition in Hollywood in the strangest places from fans, because there's a lot of fans in America. But it was an astonishing thing because you looked at all the other actors that could have gotten the part. Although I suppose, like, who else, I've always said this, who else could have played the Brigadier? I mean, we had one other Brigadier. I think I've seen Dead Dogs act better than he did. But you make your mark, the acting is, whoever gets the character, you can't imagine anyone else doing it. But that was my introduction, Invasion, and of course the rest is history.
And Nick, when you came on board, you'd already been involved with the show with Brett Vile, and then came back in as a late replacement for the Stewart character, although you weren't going to be in the story in the first place. When you played the part, did you ever think there was a chance that this whole unit idea, which was, or rather the military idea, which was quite different for Doctor Who in 1968, did you think that might be a way that the show could go forward? Did you ever think there was a chance that this was going to be a long-running earner for you and a nice part that you could expand as you have?
No, I had no idea whatsoever. To me, it was a job. and this is all in the book, I mean, a lot of it is, I do owe to Douglas Camfield, who, because he Richard saw me for the thing about the Crusades, I didn't get that. But then he remembered Night of Brett Vine, that was Dougie again, and then Web of Fear, I was due to play, as you probably all know, Captain Knight who gets killed off. The last moment, actor called David Langton, was going to play Colonel Lethbridge Stewart, had to bow out. So Douglas said, do you mind playing the Colonel instead of the Captain? I said, no, promotion's good. Fees the same, BBC the same. And then suddenly, when Peter Brown, who's the producer, said, look, would you like, Jonathan Burton's going to take over from Patrick Trump, would you like to be involved in it, and 2-year contracts? Well, of course, I jumped at the chance, and the whole idea came particularly because my daughter was about to be born, and I needed the security very badly. And then my son was born the next year, so that it all worked out, I mean, just for the best. And nothing happens by chance. You've seen that line of mine already.
Yes.
But no, I have no idea at all, And I'm very grateful. It's been very good to me, this program, and I've loved it. I don't regret it. Second, people sometimes say, oh, well, what way would your life have gone? Well, I don't know. I mean, I grew up in theatre, obviously, started in the theatre. It might have gone in any direction. There's no point speculating about it. Yes, it'd be nice to play other parts. Of course I like to play other parts. Well, I haven't just played a transvestite, don't I? But I'd rather do something else and different from, as we call it. Sort of a bit of classic stuff. But I don't regret it a second of it. It's been wonderful. And this whole... No, it's...
You always learn things at conventions, don't you? I find it's really fascinating. I never knew I'd beat Nick Courtney to the part of Captain Mike Yates.
No. Captain Knight. Knight, that was the Web of Fear. Captain Knight, who got killed off.
And Richard, you were saying that you felt you were joining this team. Of course, a key member of the team is now no longer with us, and I believe that the last time that you three gentlemen actually were together was only a few days before John's sad death.
About 10 days or so.
Yes.
Looking back now, one of his last major convention appearances was here at Manopticon, which we know he loved and enjoyed. He had a visit to Warborn, seen the demons. Looking back now through the year, what is your favourite memory of working with John?
Well, mine was simply that when I first joined Doctor Who, John used to do a lot of cabaret all around the country, and I was very grateful that he chose me to drive. I sort of technically lived with John for 2 years. We shared the same rooms in all these hotels, doing all these beauty contests and so on all over the country. But it's same thing. And he was incredible because he gave us all such a break. He was the most unvain leading man. I mean, like all of us, we've all got our little personal foibles, but he always shared everything. He never tried to take the show. He gave the Brig stuff, Benton stuff, Richard, his stuff. So all my memories of John, I mean, there's not enough time to go into it, but suffice to say that my last moment with him, I was sharing the bed and breakfast when we did the Danes, and his room was next to mine. I carried his cases up, and I knew John was in a pretty bad way, and if you look at the video, but it's easy to see in retrospect, but if you see the video, you can see the beginning and the end. But he actually had told me in his room that he was going to die, and if you remember me, on stage, he had said the Friday evening before the actual day, John Pertwee actually said to the audience, he said, I don't think I'll be around a lot longer, so I'm very pleased to be here, which I thought was his way of saying that he's going to pull his clothes. And I think also that I had to go back to America, and I think he then went to America to see the movie. We were all anticipating this movie. I mean, I met Philip Seaver in Hollywood last week, and he fell right over me. He was all over me. I was kissing his feet at the time. John wanted to see the movie. He wanted to see which way Doctor Who was going. And of course, now we've seen the movie. We know what it did for Doctor Who, but that's because it was set in America. I mean, America cheapens everything in terms of, the moment that scene opened up in San Francisco, my interest just went. It was bullshit, the opening. But the problem is, I'm a producer now, and I know how difficult it is in America. And when I met Philip just 2 weeks ago, he did admit, he said, there were so many chiefs we had to please. He admitted, quote, there was no way he could have pleased everyone. There was no way he could have kept it on the English track. They had to Americanize it. And if you remember, if you think back, the moment they said they would Americanize it, in a way, obviously, the writing was on the wall. It doesn't transfer. It's an English show. Damn it, it's going to stay English.
Richard,
Sorry.
Working with John.
Yeah, working with John was incredible. It's very difficult to sum up a man's life and a very long-standing friendship just in a few words. Probably the fewer words, the better. I will always remember him, I think, as a father figure and a very amusing father figure. I think those are the two things. First of all, and his relationship with the company. As a father figure, he took an interest in us, in his company of 6, and the guests that we used to have each week. He used to take an interest in our welfare, particularly because the 6 of us. And I mean, we all have our financial problems and shortcomings and things. And I can remember conversations that I had with him which were designed to be very helpful. And you don't so often find this among successful leading actors and actresses. They're really much more interested in their own careers. And they don't really take the trouble to, I'm not trying to pull people down, they perhaps don't have time or they don't make time to go into the problems of their fellows and their lesser fellows at that. And so I think John, from that point of view, he was very helpful personally. I also think of him as being great fun to work with. I mean, he was quite a hard taskmaster. He didn't tolerate fools gladly at all, but he was very amusing and he was very nice to be with, and he kept the atmosphere fun. I always remember when we went to Albourne for revisiting Albourne, not the last time, but the time before, we were there all a day before him, and it was great. It was wonderful to see everybody and fans and each other and everything. All went very well. Second day, we were there standing in the middle of the green on the grass, and John Berkeley walks up, and suddenly you realised you were in the presence of a star. I mean, I know this sounds awfully silly, but the whole thing sort of levitated, and he had that atmosphere about him. You could not ignore John. There was a sort of something happened when he appeared. And the third thing about John, of course, was that he was a very good professional. He was a leading man. He'd come up through theatre and treading the boards, and he knew how a company works. A lot of people who only know about television, they don't have that experience at all. They're sort of wrapped in cotton wool, they're pushed in front of the cameras, they're given a hell of a salary, they're sent off home at 4 o'clock in the afternoon, and they never meet the audience. And John knew all this, and that is, I think, one of the reasons, as well as the fact we had terribly good scripts during our period of Doctor Who, why the programme was so successful, because we had company.
Yeah, well, Richard actually said a lot of what I was going to say, but I'll add something further, which I actually said at, I was on holiday at the time. A friend of mine let me know, so I was back in time for John's funeral, and then also I was asked by his widow, Inga, to speak at his memorial service, and I did. And it's another anecdote I remember, which is at one point early on with John, I was very proud of a new pair of shoes I bought. They were brown. And I thought, God, they're so wonderful. This is what I wear for the Brigadier. They're comfortable, they look good. And I remember John, I said, John, what do you think of my new shoes? He looked at me gravely for a moment and said, no, Brigadiers don't wear shoes like that. Oh. Something like that. And of course, he was absolutely right, but I was totally miffed at the time, being younger and slightly more defensive. And so I said, well, why didn't he look after his own? Let me get on with my wardrobe. What's it got to do with it? But of course, the answer was he was absolutely right. And
they were the ones with the high heels.
They weren't the ones. No. That's the one thing I don't mind. Having done the narrator on the Rocky Horror Show, I don't mind all the fishnet and the satin pants. It's those high heels. I don't know how people manage that. I'm looking around generally. Our ladies pleasure about it. Actually, they probably don't now. But no, they weren't. They were very elegant pair of Italian brown shoes, but quite what the part. And of course, he was right. But as Richard was saying, he didn't suffer fools gladly, and he did sometimes irritate whoever's in charge, must be the wardrobe or something, because he said that's not right, or gosh, the set isn't right. But you see, yes, so I suppose it did irritate some people. But the thing was, he was doing it for the show, not for him, for the standard of the show. He was quite determined that it was going to be right. And of course he was right to be determined that the show was going to be right.
John mentioned the TV movie, which of course was the other momentous Doctor Who event of 1996, it said here. Richard, did you see the film?
No.
Not you.
I want to see it, but I just haven't got around to it.
Nick?
Well, yes, I did, because someone videoed it for me, because it was premiered when exactly when I was in Turkey with Karen. And I came, and I watched it, and I had to go and talk to a convention that the next day or something. I thought, well, I've got to have a look at this. And so I looked at it, the first night I was too tired, and I looked at it again, and the first part, I mean, Sylvester and Paul, fine. I mean, I've never seen Sylvester so still. Usually Sylvester's he's very active, he's wonderful still, he's terribly peaceful, which is tremendous. But he had this wonderful stillness, which I thought was terrific. But the last half hour with the car chase, I mean, forget it. I mean, it's just, as John said, too American and unnecessary. And a pinch from what, ER or Schwarzenegger. I mean, all these things, it's not Doctor Who. So the last half hour, I'm afraid, was no good for me. Some of the other stuff was interesting, but the last half hour, no, I didn't enjoy that.
Well, maybe that's an item that you're going to put into the Manopticon skip. Or do you have an item to go into it?
Well, yes, I do.
Should we come down to it, Nick?
Right.
Oh, it's...
No, it's not now. No,
Oh, right.
just for Nick. You know,
Just for Nick.
just for Nick, it's done. One at a time. Big can't cope with all that.
This,
This dusty bin.
you will see, is the Mind of Evil. Great one with Roger Delgado, who I like so much. The Mind of Evil. But inside this is a picture of who I call the one that got away on Thursday night. The ex-Home Secretary, Michael Howard. The Mind of Evil himself.
Come down, because otherwise...
Oh, sure.
Yeah.
Fine.
Right. Do we have roving mic roving?
A roving
Do we
mic.
have roving mic roving?
That's my hairbrush, I'm not pleased to see it.
Actually, we can have a raving mic. We can have a raving. God, I'm working well for 10 years.
You're talking early night, do you? Good. Do we have a question? Do we have any questions? Yes, gentlemen.
Oh, now we can see you.
So
How did Richard feel about Mike Yates becoming a traitor in Invasion of the Dinosaurs?
Well, first of all, of course, I was not a traitor. I thought I was trying to establish the golden age on Earth, which is what I've been doing for the last 3 weeks. Election campaign, I always back the wrong side. I don't know why. The only people I back the right side is you.
Yeah. Yep, near the front, yes. Yep.
Well, I am. I've just written a movie script in Hollywood, which nearly got picked up 4 months ago, and I just had to get over the shattering disappointment of missing $3.5 million. But you know, one gets over it. And I'm writing my book as we speak because one of the things I did when my family fell apart 15 years ago, I decided to go to sea. John Courtney was, as you know, in the Navy. My father was on the Russian convoy during the war. And I decided to go to sea, which was the best decision I ever made. It was the most exciting 2.5 years of my life. I did 48 countries, 36 islands, met millions of people. And I decided to write a journal. I had this very thick diary with me. And I must confess, I'm like Nick, I'm enjoying writing. I've been writing scripts for Robert Wagner, which he liked. And I worked on the assumption that if he liked them, then I must be doing something right. And so I've been doing my journal slowly and gradually, and getting it all down on tape. So whilst I didn't want to do a book, I think we actually owe the fans a book or two. I can't imagine how many copies would sell, but yes, mine will be about, I imagine, in 5 years.
Richard, you seem to be the odd one out of the trio. Are you doing your book?
Well, yeah, I've stopped talking about it now because, yes, I have written The Adventures of What Happened to Mike Yates. But I keep on saying I'm going to have it ready for next year, and I've not stopped saying it. Yes, actually my whole pattern of life has changed quite considerably because I'm centering my focus in London now instead of in Yorkshire. Because London is where the work is, and hopefully that the pen will come out again as I've been writing plays.
Another question. Yes, then.
Yes. Yes, I can. In fact, it's not until I've seen all the reruns in America that I realised I did quite a few movies. And George Sand, I think it was called what? Second. Very art type.
Typecasting.
It was Val Getz directed, I remember. Yes, George Sanders, Joan Collins. Yes. And yes, gosh, that was a long time ago. Gosh, thank you very much. Yeah.
Another question. Any questions from this side? Down near the back. Got a roving mic heading down.
Beautiful room full of people.
Can we shout out down the back this question? Somebody? No, a hand's gone down. Take this one again. Yes. Can we do this is actually something we want to do for the book because Nick feels that everybody's heard the eye patch story. And what's the point of putting it in the book? How many people, can we do a straw poll? How many people have actually heard the genuine eye patch story as opposed to the version told by John, told by anybody else, but Nick's own version of it? Can we hands up for those who've actually heard Nick tell this story? I think that proves we need it in the book, Nick. Can we have the story, please?
Yes.
We're taking this.
You can have the story indeed. Well, it was during Inferno, which is the first chapter I've written on this book because it was obviously my personal favourite, playing two parts, very interesting. And in Inferno, the brigade leader, the fascist, I had an eye patch, which Dougie reckoned had been received in what I call the Heidelberg scar, because he was having a duel with someone. And his eye had obviously been put out by someone he thought the brigade leader would be. Anyway, so I was sitting there in my office while John was bringing in John Pertwee as a prisoner, and I swung round, and they all, this was in the studio, mind you, dress rehearsal probably, and they all had eye patches on. John, and Caroline, three Johns. Because the first time John Pertwee told this story, he said, and there was Katie in there, and I said, no, John, it wasn't Katie, it was Caroline anyway.
It was Liz as well, don't worry.
Liz as well. And then they all were with the eye patch stories on, you see, thinking to break me up. The trouble is they didn't. I just went on with the lines. I went on with the lines, and one by one they went, one at a time. I think he went first. I think probably Pertwee went second, and I think Caroline and John went third. And I still pursued the lines. They said, you swine, you idiot. Sorry. It's very hard to make me laugh if I don't feel like it. I can take in the humour and enjoy it. It's the unexpected which makes me laugh and giggle. Because dear Dougie, bless him, he used to say, Dougie Canfield used to say, we had a comedy run-through, you see, to get rid of all the giggles. He said, and if something went wrong at a more serious one, he'd get very annoyed, Dougie. He said, you had your comedy run-through, and I said, Dougie, dear Dougie, darling, you have a comedy run-through, which I'm not sure whether it works anywhere, particularly, I think it didn't work for me. But I said, you can't get rid, if something happens like that and it's funny, it's going to happen if you're trying to do it serious. We're not fooling around. That's true, honestly.
It's been done. The idea's in your mind, isn't it?
The idea, well, that's right. It's the unexpected which makes me laugh. As I've said before, and no, that's all right. Are you going to surprise me with something, Richard? I don't know.
I'll definitely walk you. Richard, what makes you laugh? We're sticking with the...
Anyway, that's the eye patch story.
Yeah.
What makes me laugh?
Yeah.
Jokes.
John Levene's jokes.
Well, no,
No, he says, no.
I was going to go into politics. I had half a mind to go into politics, because I figured that's all you really needed. Can I just ask, is everybody warm? Is this the warmest sodding hotel you've ever seen? I'd like to thank Paul Condon right now. I got a lovely room, obviously flying me in. I've got a wonderful room. I've got sliding doors, carpet, wall to wall. It's incredible. I've never slept in a bloody lift before. Never.
But it's almost, it reminds me of when the three of us were in Florida doing a convention many, many years ago, and the air conditioning broke down in Florida in August. And you guys are lucky because, bless their hearts, some of the guys, when we were signing the autographs, they were there with great pieces of cardboard. Talk about fans, they were.
Any more questions? You're doing really beautiful. And yes, there's one at the back straight away with the money in it. Downtime, wartime.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, yes, I would, and in fact, I might be. Contract isn't signed yet, but I might well be doing a sequel to Downtime. That's quite possible.
Those who didn't hear the question, it was that Nick's been involved with Downtime, and John, 10 years back now, was involved with Wartime, which in fact is the first of the unofficial spin-offs. Richard, have you been approached, or have you ever wanted
No, I
to
think I'll do something called Tea Time. I just done we recorded a few extra bits for the old Mythmakers, which is now a new Mythmakers, which I think improves it enormously, actually. That was a nice series.
Yes, it was. The extra footage is terrific.
And Percy?
Yeah. How do you feel Doctor Who conventions and Doctor Who fans in general in the UK have changed over the last 10, 15 years since you've been doing a convention?
Next question.
It
hasn't changed.
Not
Love and affection.
Not seismically. No, I don't think.
I think the questions are becoming a lot more sophisticated, actually. There was a time when we used to be asked exactly the same question at every single convention.
Like, what was it like working with Tom Baker?
Yeah.
I mean, you remember that one used to come on?
Yeah.
Well,
What was it?
What was it?
Oh,
The
who
Blake
was
Came
your
to
favourite Doctor? And of course we always say the same thing. But, no, I agree with John. I don't think they have changed in quality. I think the quality is exactly the same. It's always been absolutely superb. It was a wonderful moment to meet the people on the other side of the camera. This is a notably good convention. Very sad. I think it's the last one.
It is apparently, yes.
Yeah, it's a great show.
Actually, Manopticon's always good.
Question over there.
How did you feel when you heard that to become a Miss Marcel?
I bloody hated it. I thought, well, in fact, when they asked me to be in the Five Doctors, see, I worked hard on Benton because I didn't think I was very good. I didn't show. Well, that's what I was going to explain. No, I worked very hard on Benton because, unlike the others, I hadn't done any repertory or drama school, and I was very conscious and very lacking in self-esteem. And that's, I think it's possibly an English trait. But what happened is, I was disappointed because there's a lot of other things I could have done, and it insulted the intelligence or intellect that I put into Benton. And that's really one of the reasons I turned down the Five Doctors, is because they insulted all the work that Douglas, Nick, Richard, myself had done on Benton. And I was going to do one scene with Patrick Troughton out of vision, and that's not the reason I was in it, because vanity isn't what this is all about. But the fact that I wouldn't have recognised the second Doctor, one of the guys I got on best in my life, and I remember the director phoned me up and said, we'll do a rewrite. Well, I've heard that word before too. And so they rewrote it, and I was even more out of vision, and not recognising him even more. So I just totally refused to do it, based on the assumption that I worked so hard with Benton that I didn't want to let my own character down. That's just defense.
Actually, I think that, John, you always put yourself down about the acting thing, because, to be quite honest, I think that to have a tremendous sort of background of sort of academic whatever is actually a disadvantage to acting, especially in film. And I think that you are very natural in front of the camera, and that is a most tremendously strong point. I actually had to unlearn all the things that I'd learned at RADA and Oxford and Christ knows what, because in a way it got in the way of my work in front of the camera, where you just need to be.
I've actually thought of it. Thank you. Why didn't you tell me this 20 years ago?
You've only just worked it out.
I never got to university because I had to go in the army and do my national service. And I stayed a private, as you know, and that's why I played a brigadier, I suppose.
Yes, yep.
John, do you think Benton could be a captain?
No.
No. But when I became regimental sergeant, I got £20 raise every time I remember.
Yes.
I started off at £60 a week, and then I became corporal, and I got £70 a week. Then I became sergeant, and I got £80, and then I was made regimental sergeant, and I got £90 a week.
My salary will remain the same throughout, I think.
I must say one thing though, I think it's wonderful that the three of us are still alive in this process. And that we are here, it's 30 years ago today, almost. I mean, it's almost 30 years that the show was on. And I just think it's wonderful that you still come here and that we're all still here. I just find I'm all help for you. And all that, I just think it's very well, I like things like that, because we do it all the time.
John, can I just ask you, what was it like getting a whole factory worth of women wanting to marry?
Exhausting. That's when my self-esteem wasn't damaged. My first fan letter was, from 636 ladies, and I actually went to the factory, I must confess, and that is where Courtney was just, you see, John took me under his under his wing, and he taught me. I remember seeing John do vaudeville. Now, most of you aren't as old as we are on stage now, but back in those days when vaudeville, before video, which I think video's ruined everything, personally, I think computers and video are the biggest scourge we've invented because it's taken away all the things that we used to hold precious. Now
they're not infallible either.
Well, no, but everything now is instantaneous and we're so overloaded with information. But back in those days when John used to say to me, we used to do the buttons and do all the, beauty contests, and it was one day, the first gig I ever did with John, he taught me to do the chair gag, the old thing, the Bedford chair. And he's taught me how to do that, and I'm hoping to possibly do it at my next panel. But we got the buttons, and this was the first time I'd ever met real vaudevillian people, all these people that are now dead and gone. And there was one sketch John did, we got the buttons and Minehead. And he said that he had three props, the chair, a guitar, and a 22-foot long pitchfork with a genuine pitchfork on the end. And so this was my first time on a big stage. His buttons used to be really big. And they had an orchestra, a 20-piece orchestra, and John didn't tell me what was going to go on. He just told me that after I'd done the chair gag that I'd have to get the pitchfork. And I walked on, and John looked, he did the old gag, he looked at the piano player and said, could you give me an E flat? And so the guy gave him a note. He said, oh, Bucky, give me an E and I'll flatten it myself. Well, all that. So anyway, in the end, the trumpet player had to do a solo, and he got it wrong. So the trumpet player had down the pits. I don't know whether you remember when they had orchestras down there.
Not the pits,
So,
the pits. Not the pits, the pits.
Oh, sorry. Well, that's what the act was.
So the act was a bit like Jimmy McEnroe, the pits.
Anyway, so the trumpet player got it wrong, and John would look down and say, could you get that right, please? And the trumpet player said, oh, sorry, Mr. Pertwee. So they'd start the thing again. The trumpet player would get it wrong, and Pertwee would say, would you mind? And he'd end up getting cross. And then, on the third time, he said, if you get it wrong another time, he said, I'm going to have you out of that orchestra, or whatever, next year. Yes, that. And I'm going to have you out of it. And I used to think, well, what is he going to do? So anyway, the trumpet player got it wrong again. John picked up the pitchfork, and with all the energy I've ever seen, it went down, and he stuck it right into the stomach of the trumpeter, and pulled the guy out of the, whatever Nick said it was, out and threw it right over the back of the stage whilst the trumpet was playing. And of course, I thought it was a dummy with a trumpet, but that was what vaudeville really was. And I saw the end of that, and that's why I wish it could all come back. And I think vaudeville will. I think it'll be a full circle.
One last question.
In the light of the Labour victory, if Frankie Howard had been Prime Minister, what would he have said to John Levene?
No. Somebody else answer that question, Nick.
What would he have said? He'd have said, Nicholas, want you to be Foreign Secretary. By the way, I hope it's not being, but I do want to thank, after John died last year, I don't know how it was arranged, whether I was elected or was decided by all around the country, but thank you, some of you, who have contributed to making me John's successor, the president of the Doctor Who Appreciation Society.
Oh.
Thank you very much. It's a great honour, and I've got to find out what my duties are, because I haven't found out what they are yet. But I hope I do it as well as John do. John did. John do, yeah, but I doubt that I will, because he was quite something. And on a last note, he's right, absolutely right. John Pertwee taught me, when I read law, how to, I could dare use the word now, because you'll think it means something else, how to stop being a private person. I wanted to be, made me open face, do cabaret. All this wouldn't have happened hadn't I not been working with John Pertwee. It wouldn't have happened. I wouldn't have had the courage to get up here and chuck myself about, or whatever I do.
Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. John Levene.